Hello and Assalamualaikum to everyone. Before I go through to the topic given, I hope you all can give me attention to the video. Okay, let's go to the topic given. Emergency plan and procedure in sale of radioactive material and irradiating apparatus. What is emergency? Emergency is accident or incident that can happen in or during testing, commissioning, while doing maintenance or delivery of packages containing radioactive material. There are three of emergency sources. First, loss of control personnel. Second, loss of control machines or radiation sources. And third, accident during transportation. Loss control of personnel is about unauthorized person get access to the classified area, while a machine or a device containing radioactive material or an irradiating apparatus is being tested and the radiation is on. It's about result of human error. Second, loss of control of machine or radiation sources. This is about misplaced, lost or stolen sources, spread of contamination as a result of leakage of radioactive material solution from a container. Third, accidental loss of shielding of radiation. Third source of emergency, accident during transportation. Severe impact from the road accident may cause significant damage to the packages that may lead to occurrence of contamination and direct exposure. There are two levels of emergency classification. First, about consequences are limited to a facility, room and building. And the second level is consequences have spread out but limited to the perimeter of the facility. Content. The plan is established which aims to limit the exposure to as low as reasonably achievable (ALARA). Second, control and bring the situation back to the normal immediately after an accident happened. And third, gather information for the purpose of assessment and taking corrective action.
My part include emergency procedure, missing sources, and high radiation. Under emergency procedure, we got two parts, which is reporting procedure and RPO responsibilities. For the reporting procedures, all accidents and incidents must be reported for mitigating actions to be taken without undue delay. Reporting procedures must be made according to the hierarchy of command. The most important is to control the accident or incident site and to report the accident or incident to the RPO or RPS. RPO responsibilities we guide immediately come to the site and take preliminary action to control the exposure and assess the situation. Next, together with the supplier and his personnel should take action to mitigate accident. On the other hand, work together and supervise personnel from any external support group involved in the emergency mitigation. Lastly, inform the AELB within 24 hours and submit a written full accident investigation report within 30 days. Next, missing sources. Use available personnel and survey meters to search within the premise. If the search within the premise is not successful, extend the search to areas outside the premise. When all possibilities are exhausted and the source or the device is still not found, request the assistance of outside support groups. Notify the AELB and if necessary also the police. If the source, the machine or the device is found, check for physical damage and indication of increased radiation leakage. Declare that emergency situation is over and the situation is back to normal. Prepare a detailed report of the incident to be submitted to the AELB. Last but not least, high radiation, which has two persons in charge, which is supplier and RPO or RPS. For the supplier, they should provide local shielding if necessary and practicable, and set up a barrier to mark the new boundary of the control or supervised area. And for the RPO or RPS, they should plan a means of shutting the radiation beam off or retrieving the radiation source. In the event of difficulty in switching the radiation beam off or retrieving the source, obtain the assistance of outside support group.
For physical damage, if there is a physical damage to a cell source, its tube or its housing, the supplier should stop testing or prevent the commissioning of the machine or device until it is thoroughly examined, tested and confirmed fit for use, and inform the RPO or RPS for further action. What the RPO or RPS should do: use survey meters to assess for any possible damage to inherent shielding, identify the requirement and establish control on areas by setting up barriers and notice, provide additional shielding, and store the device until alternative full shielding is restored. Then carry out a leak test on the source or the machine before it can be used. Declare that emergency situation is over and the situation is back to normal. Prepare a detailed report of the incident to be submitted to the Atomic Energy Licensing Board. Next, leakage of a radiation source. A radiation source is assumed to be leaking if obvious physical damage to a sealed source or its housing, potential damage resulting from abnormal mechanical pressure on the source, when the source has been unactivated for XXXX, meaning that it is lost. What the supplier should do: isolate the source and its housing and items that have been in contact with them, and avoid moving them unnecessarily. Put barriers around the potentially contaminated area, prevent access to them, and restrict the movement of persons that have entered them. Inform the RPO or RPS. What the RPO or RPS should do: request an immediate test for leakage of radioactive substance, notify the Atomic Energy Licensing Board immediately, obtain further guidance from the AELB about risk of any contamination, the collection and the disposal of contaminated item, and assessment of internal doses. Declare the emergency situation is over and the situation is back to normal. Prepare a detailed report of the incident to be submitted to the AELB. Next, transport accident. What the driver should do if there is accident: put up a physical barrier and warning sign around the accident site. Next, immediately inform the RPO or RPS and provide all the necessary information to them. Take further action based on advice of them. What the RPO or RPS should do: in case of emergency level 1, advise the driver on further course or action to be taken. If the emergency is beyond the capability of them to handle, request for an assistance from outside support group nearest to the accident site. Together with the driver, supervise the outside support personnel involved. Notify the Atomic Energy Licensing Board and the consignor immediately. Declare the emergency situation is over and the situation is back to normal. Prepare a detailed report of the incident to be submitted to the Atomic Energy Licensing Board.
Now, let's move on to emergency equipment. Protective devices and radiation measuring equipment are very important in dealing with accident or incident. The equipment and devices reserved for emergency should not be used for routine work. Emergency equipment for irradiating apparatus are 1 survey meter for measuring radiation, 1 or 2 units of personal dosimeter, and other radiation protection devices. For radioactive materials, at least 1 survey meter of dual function to measure both radiation and contamination, 1 or 2 units of direct reading personal dosimeters, and other radiation protection devices such as lead apron and warning signs. Next, emergency preparedness. Emergency plan should always be in the state of readiness and ready to be utilized. It is therefore very important that the plan should be made known to all workers and be regularly tested. Always update and review the plan and its procedure and make the necessary changes accordingly. For personnel involved in the plan to be given appropriate allocation for them to undergo a relevant training program. And lastly, equipment reserved for emergency should be regularly checked, tested and calibrated. Lastly, accident investigation and reporting policy. All accidents and incidents involving sale and supply of radioactive materials and irradiating apparatus must be investigated and reported to the relevant authorities. Licensee must have a policy to investigate and report an accident. Among activities that need to be done before investigation includes having a policy requiring all accidents involving the supplier to be reported, identifying and training the investigator, assembling the tools for investigation, and deciding on who is or are supposed to read the report and implement the recommendations made. Activities would include acquisition of all information that would explain the causes of the accidents. Accident investigation must focus on the root and secondary causes of the emergency. The whole idea of investigation is not to find fault, but rather to find the root cause of the accident. Notifying and reporting. Licensee is responsible for notifying the AELB of any radiological accidents involving sale and supply of radioactive materials and irradiating apparatus by telephone within 24 hours. Licensee must arrange for the accident to be investigated, and a full accident investigation report must be submitted within 30 days after the accident. That's all from us. Thank you.